I would like to, on behalf of inshallah, welcome Maulana Sheikh Ahmed Haneef to start his speech with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
والصلاة والسلام على رسوله وحبيبه أبي القاسم محمد على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. I feel very privileged and very happy and very enthusiastic and very excited and very many of all those positive things to be here to talk with you today. Especially so because Sheikh Maulana Abbas has been a very, very close friend of mine, and we go back many, many years together, studying the same classes. Sometimes we would have study sessions, just me and him. And I've grown very much to love him and to love his family. And you know, if he was on the top of Mount Everest and asked me to come up there to do something for him, I would do that, inshallah. So I'm very pleased to be here and very pleased to share my journey with you. Especially at this time in Rajab, which I would like to sort of make a connection between Rajab and my coming into Islam some 31 years ago. Allah says in the Holy Quran, Inna iddata ash-shuhur inda Allah athna ashara shahran fi kitabillah. يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها أربعة حرم ذلك الدين القيم فلا تظلموا فيهن أنفسكم. Allah says, indeed, the number of months with Allah is 12 months in Allah's book. The day when He created the heavens and the earth, of these 4 are sacred. That is the upright religion, so do not wrong yourselves during them. And the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said that hearts have a capacity to incline towards God and to retract towards God. And indeed, one knows in the creation of the intellect, the act, He said it to come close and it came close, and He said it to go back and it went back. So the Holy Prophet said hearts have a tendency to turn towards Allah and sometimes to be moving away. And He says that whenever you turn, the heart is close to Allah, that's when you do the nawafil. And whenever it tends to be away, you do the obligatory. Obligatory is much more important. Obligatory is what you stay with. Now, why I mention these two things? We're talking about here on one side, we're talking about the existence of 4 months time with respect to worship, with respect to sacredness. And another level, we are talking about hal, about the state of the soul. On one level we have time, and on the other level we have a state. And they are related as the outward and the inward. On the outward level, of all the times that we have, there are times that are special. There's what we call sacred times. And in these sacred times, there are times that souls should take advantage of, because at that time they can get closer to Allah and more realizing of their spiritual state than at other times. So for example, in the week, we have the time of Jum'ah, for example, which is a special time. Or we have the time for prayer. The first time for prayer is always considered one of the optimum times for closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then we have, for example, times where, they coincide with certain geographical activity that are good to pray. For example, when it's raining, or when someone is crying, which is one can say the rain of the body. These are times where it's very, very good to utilize in order to ask Allah to send down His blessings upon us. Now, time in this world is very much tied up with physicality. For example, many physicists will tell you that time is related to motion. If you have no motion in space, you do not have time. So time is related to motion in space. And so therefore, time has a relationship with matter and space. And in Islam, especially matter and space have different hierarchies. One is special sacred time, the other one is sacred space. So for example, not all spaces, not all places on the earth are the same in the opportunity it provides us for spiritual development. For example, the sacred space of Mecca is much more opportune for our spiritual development as opposed to the space of London, or the sacred space of Kufa, or the sacred space of Medina, or even the sacred spaces that are occupied by highly spiritual personalities. So, for example, this is one of the reasons why we do ziyarat, because in that space, that interns that sacred body, that space becomes a sacred place, and is able for us to be able to utilize this in order to reach Allah. Now, what about the soul? What about the spirit of a human being? Because the spirit of a human being is not material, and therefore by not being material, it does not obey the dictates of time. It does not obey the control of time. The spirit of a human being is above the material, is above space. Your spirit, your soul, does not reside in your body on a physical level. It is focused on your body. It is concentrated on your body. But it's not in your body. You see? Because that would mean that your spirit would be contained by the body. And because the spirit then is not subject to space and is not material, then it is not subject to time. So instead of time, we have in the spirit hal, state. And it is this state of the spirit that can be described as nearness and distance. But these words do not mean within space, they mean in terms of closeness in being, not closeness in distance. And so, time in this world is reflected in the spirit by a state in the spiritual world. Which the time in this world we can utilize to instill a spirit or a heart, a state in the spiritual world. Therefore, time or certain occasions, certain outward realities are reflected in the individual experience. And so, for example, Laylatul Qadr is a particular time in the month of Ramadan. But each soul experiences its own Laylatul Qadr in its own development. Rajab is the time for istighfar, the time for asking forgiveness. In utilizing Rajab, we could recognize or experience our own internal Rajab, which might not